I'd like to dedicate this video to my three C's, to Celine, Chiara and Chloe. And I hope that with this I can bring some light to the problematic of ADHD, and I really would like to avoid any of my granddaughters or any child who is already affected by ADHD at a young age. I'd like them to learn from my life's experience what I think education should do to avoid people with ADHD growing up with low self-esteem and just because they're different doesn't mean they need to be treated like complete and utter idiots, and to go around your entire life from a very small age because you're doing things differently because of the lack of dopamine, you behave in a different way. I think adults should be more aware of this and not make this person feel that they're stupid because of a different behavior, and try and find ways of improving their dopamine level. I think first of all at school we should start with sports first thing in the morning. Everybody should do some physical activity for the first hour before they go into study. I mean, I've just gone back on videos that of my past, and my trip to China. We went at 6 a.m. in the morning to, I can't remember what it was called, Temple Park, which was like a park where most people were old, and they were all doing some physical activity, some sort or another. I'm not going to go into details now, but this was one good thing that Mao Zedong had sort of inculcated into people's minds, that they should do sports in the morning because people need to move their bodies and it helps your mind and so on, and then you get into work, and with these kids who they see fidgeting, or in girls' cases like looking out into space, or dreaming of the fairies, or whatever, all the different things that us girls who've been later diagnosed later in life, who because we weren't hyperactive and disturbing the class, but it doesn't stop episodes that I may have lived through, which were, at a very young age, because I wasn't listening. I was in fairyland, as I've been told in a later day. I had my ears pulled like that by the, "You're not listening." I mean, is that really a way of getting somebody to react properly? No. Huh. So, anyway, the story continues. So as I said, the story continues with me getting diagnosed finally, and I found a centre specialised in ADHD, and you saw a psychiatrist who then asked you a series of questions, put me through a series of tests, and then I had a brain mapping done, which is like when you're having a brain scan, they put all sorts of a cap on your head with all sorts of different electrodes that go all over your head, and then they're monitoring your behavior with eyes open and then with eyes closed. Anyway, getting back to that, I found this ever so funny after having done it. I don't know whether you've ever seen a map of a person's mind. Doctors sometimes drew maps of other parts of you, and your own map can become intensely interesting. But catch them trying to draw a map of a child's mind, which is not only confused, but keeps going round all the time. There are zigzag lines on it, just like your temperature on a card, and there are probably roads in the island, for the Neverland is always more or less an island, with astonishing splashes of colour here and there, and coral reefs and rakish-looking crafts in the offing, and savages and lonely lairs, and gnomes who are mostly tailors, and caves through which river runs, and princes with his elder brothers, and a hut fast going to decay, and one very small old lady with a what? Wow, with a hooked nose. It would also be an easy map if that were all. But there is also first day at school, religion, fathers, round pond, needlework, murders, hangings, verbs. That take the dative chocolate pudding day, getting into braces, say 99 3p for a pulling. So, going back to this was an extract from Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. Anyway, so going back to brain mapping and its techniques, this is what I was saying to you, that they apply a sort of helmet to your head with the electrodes, and they can read activities in your brain by doing this, and by reading that they can see which areas of your brain are slower, or your anger, this, that and the other. Anyway, getting back to brain mapping, and to future kids, and for them not to be isolated or differentiated from neurotypicals, neurodivergents, whatever. I think that everybody should have a brain mapping, and they should work out what kids are neurodivergent and be either put in separate groups. I haven't studied education, but I know about ADHD, and I know now what problems failed me. Always being told I was stupid. No one really realized why I was off with the fairies, or, nowadays, now I understand it's been studied and recognized. So let's do something about it. Let's not just make these people still feel like they're stupid, because that's far from true. I mean, as far as I understand, like the lady that I was seeing, Elena O'Callaghan, she made a big change in Catalonia for the ADHD community, where she made there be a protocol for exams, so there was extra time. But it's not just that. We shouldn't arrive to exam stage. It should be diagnosed much earlier, and it should be given all sorts of tools and helps. The teachers should learn a lot more about this. A whole education system needs to be more au fait about this, because everything to do with the future alcoholics, it's got a major problem in society at a later date if it isn't dealt with early. So, why don't we try and do something about it early, for goodness sake. So, getting back to the actual point of this storytelling documentary, apart from, wanting to raise awareness about ADHD and so on and so forth, a few years ago, I asked a friend called Beatrice Janer, who's a filmmaker, photographer, if she would help me document my project of the what do you call it again? I'm trying to create a brand out of the memory of my sister's funness and so on and so forth, to raise money for our family NGO. So that's where it all began.
Sam says enjoy life.
So some people might start asking questions. What the hell is she talking about? Why is she mixing ADHD with her project about her sister and so on and so forth? So just to sort of get you up to speed with my brain that goes here, there and everywhere, you may have to keep going back to what you might have seen before, because that's how I jump from one subject to another, and I'm afraid that's the way it goes. But I wanted to document the project at the time, and then the story I asked her to tell, which was the project, because I wanted some kind of advertising or people knowing what was going on to try and sell the merchandising which we were making, which was the aim of that was to raise more money for our family charity. Anyway, after a few years, when we finally decided we would edit this documentary of my project, Beatrice found that she had more of a story to tell about my grief and not about the actual project of the merchandising and so on and so forth. So anyway, she made her vision and told her story. I wasn't very happy with well, it didn't really mean anything. I thought no one would understand what was going on in that story, and ever since I've been diagnosed with ADHD, and from that I've tried to analyze myself, and going to see various people and so on and so forth, and listening to a lot of ADHDers talking about their obsessive, different things that different ADHDers have, and one of mine is obsessions and sensitive dysphoria. And yes, Ringo, yes, I do. So I think that this, like a lot of things that I now look back on, have their pros and their contras, whether, I didn't handle my grief, and this is what I want to, the main thing about, it's a mixture of ADHD as handling grief, as far as I have understood, like searching online for other people's experiences with grief and ADHD. But obviously we can't get into the body and mind of a person that isn't ADHD and feel their grief. As we say, everybody's grief is different. But we've got to admit that I think it was about 8 to 9 years of dedication that I spent on trying to get this merchandising off the ground before I fucking got it into my head that it wasn't really working. Was also an obsession of mine. I don't know if it was to handle my grief, to not accept my grief. I don't quite know what it was, but this is what the story that I'm trying to say is. I don't really know where I was going with it, but maybe other people, maybe looking at my journey can help other people work themselves out, or see that it might not have been the healthiest of ways to get over grief, to keep being in there day in and day out, looking at her photos, listening to her voice, having her face painted, living in another world that wasn't reality. So that doesn't help you move on, really, does it? So this is where I'm getting to. And this is where I would like to, so that people can realize that if you have obsessive thoughts, which is one of my major problems with anything that is kind of abandonment, I take it very, very badly. And that's something that they don't talk a lot about, is the sensitive dysphoria. I can't remember exactly what it is. Sensitive dysphoria, something or another. Anyhow, the story carries on. Rejection sensitive dysphoria, RSD, is a problem that interferes with your ability to regulate your emotional responses to feelings of failure or rejection. While rejection is almost always unpleasant, people with RSD experience overwhelming levels of emotional pain. In a way, I suppose my homage to Sam involved various different factors. Number one, as I said before, an homage in memory of her, and because she wasn't somebody famous, but she had achieved so many things in her non-famous life within the famous. That doesn't make you any specialer than non-famous people. But anyway, I just wanted, I think, to show her enthusiasm for life, to know how she enjoyed life, as I said before, her job. Like me, she loved to be around people, and she loves these fashion shows. I mean, all these fashion shows that were filmed behind the scenes, they're just such wonderful historical moments that everyone's pleased to have afterwards. And I think I should be proud of that instead of people, what she thinks she's doing. Anyway, that's it. That was Sam Says Enjoy Life, and that's what I was trying to prove.